back with another video. This time my first basing video on how to do a desert base. Okay, so we're using the base from the buggy just to have some more space to work. You're gonna need some Elmer's glue. You can see I've got my little sand mix here to start. And I'm using my GW's handy dandy tool. Alright, so I put down some of the Elmer's glue. This is something that I'm gonna spread out around. I add the glue and then the sand before doing the crackle effect to kind of give a textural variation. I think that, especially on a large base like this, it can get a little monotonous if it's all of like one similar texture. So this gives some distinction between kind of two regions, like the crackle piece and this sandy gritty piece. So you can see I just sprinkled on some of the sand mixture, different grits, got a couple of big pieces in there, shaked it off, gonna let it dry. You can see, let it dry fully so it hardens up. Now next on to the Agrelian Earth. This is the GW base paint. These are really great. I have always had like really great success with this specific one. I don't use it for its coloration, but I do use it for its textural effect. So you can see I loaded on really heavily onto the base. And the interesting part about this basing paint is that you can control the depth of the crackle by the depth of the paint. So the thicker the paint you leave on there, the thicker the crackle, and the thinner the area, the smaller and tinier the crackle will be. And so again, if you vary up the depth of the crackle, so you can see like in some spots here it's much thicker and some spots a lot thinner. You can even come back and thin it out yourself. But if you add that variation, you will have a real variation in the crackle as well. And so this was overnight, it fully dried, and you can really see the difference here is the larger, the small crackles there and the large crackles here are just from the depth of the paint. All right, so quickly primed it with Vallejo black primer and coming in with the Xandri dust. Took a real hard bristled brush and just really stabbing the base color into all those nooks and crannies. This was just kind of the starter point. All right, so I come in with the Doombull brown. All the parts that I laid down with the sand is gonna end up being that Doombull brown. I'm using an airbrush, but I am going to show you quickly how you can do it with a paintbrush too. Okay, so like I said, if you don't have the airbrush, take your Doombull brown, take your Xandri dust. All of this is going under washes and under dry brushing, so this is a good time to practice your wet blending. If you don't have the airbrush, you bust out the colors and start blending with your brush. Pulling the two colors together, you can see, just kind of gently pulling one color into the other. You take another color, and exactly that wet blending is while the paint is still wet. Okay. So back to the airbrush. Again, this can be done with a brush, but I'm using an airbrush here. Sort of the in-between regions, the flatter regions, I like to do in the Ubshanti bone, kind of a lighter color, while leaving some of the Xandri dust still showing. This again kind of creates that contrast on the base, and this is that sort of natural color variation. All right, so coming in with the old Agrax Earthshade. I end up just dousing this thing in some Agrax. I probably ended up going a little too heavy actually with the glue and the Agrax in the sandy bits. I think I lost some of the real nice texture that can be created. You can actually see it here that like the wash kind of pooled up a little bit in the sandy areas, a little too much. I could have wicked some of that away, and like I said, if I wasn't too liberal with the glue, it might have worked out better. Alright, so time for the dry brushing. First step, Xandri dust. I got a big soft dry brush here, taking really most of the paint off and working in sort of gentle circles and just sort of gently building up the color and dry brushing some of those real raised bits. Then coming in with the Screaming Skull. The Screaming Skull is going to be a lot more gentle. You're going to try to just pick out some of the much more raised areas, and that will kind of give that real like pop for the most protruding little tiny bits. We look pretty good there, but I just wanted to kind of pick out the rocks with a little bit of the Reikland Flesh shade. This is not dramatic, but it kind of helps distinguish some of the bigger items. This is always the important step, just cleaning up the edge of the base. And lastly, I've been playing with these pigments far more. This is the Vallejo Desert Pigment, kind of bringing back some of that lighter color in there and producing some of that dusty effect. And again, it gives more of a color variation to the base. And I think that sort of deserty, dusty effect comes through with the pigments. And this is one of my favorites. This umber color really is kind of this rich brown, red brown, that brought in just in like some very faint little detail areas here. Kind of scrubbing the color in a couple of places. It's looking pretty good here. I think I'm, nearing the end. You can kind of work back and forth with the colors. Last step is I've got some grass tufts, dead grass tufts from Green Stuff World. I normally glue these down. I wasn't sure on the positioning too much, so I just tacked them down very gently just to take a couple of photos. But there you have it. Nice arid desert base. This is pretty much the approach that I take for all my orc basing for the deserts, and this is the kind of stuff that I've been working on for the new orc buggies. Thanks, guys. So, as always, follow me over on Instagram at QuarterPaint, and like and subscribe and all that stuff. Thanks.